In this video, we're going to be exploring the three primary objects that are used for framing the actual members of a wall. We've already looked at the plates, and that was pretty straightforward. Now we have posts, shear walls, and door and window openings. Let's go through each one of these separately and get an idea of how they work and what needs to happen here. So let's start with the post. That's the easiest. So this is a post, and if we want the dimension of the post, nominal dimension, the 4x in this case, to show, then we uncheck this box. We have options to do different studs here. We can rotate the stud 90 degrees, or we can rotate the entire object, obviously. When we click this, it takes the dimension off. All three of these objects work so that you set the wall height to the nominal wall height, and then you tell it what type of plates are being used, and the deductions are made automatically. That way we can keep this at project 0. We don't have to elevate it, and the top of the wall all lines up, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a minute. This object also allows us to put some labels on showing the marker. Here you can see the marker. So lots of choices, but it's very easy to use. Basically, we're going to just come in, say we need a post here, and we want to make this 4x4. And if this post was intended to line up with this beam, we're done. So it's very simple to model your post. When we look at this in 3D, I'll select my layers and make the walls outlines. See, the post stops here because it knows what the plates are. It knows where 0 is. It starts the post up a little higher. So the post is really straightforward. The next object we're going to look at is the window and door opening. So what's nice about this object is instead of modeling each one of these members independently, they stay one object and everything is editable. So for example, if we wanted to make the header a 10 by, all the cripples get adjusted. If we change the width of the opening, change the height of the opening, it's holding an 8-foot header right now. And these are nominal dimensions. We go into the parameters. We'll see we have clearances, and we're using 3/8 on the left and right, 1/4 inch on the bottom, 1/2 inch on the top. You can also choose to use bucks, which will add an additional amount around the perimeter. This object allows us to do non-level upper plates, and it does that by giving us 3 hotspots control the gable. So it's nice to get this inside your wall, and then often the easiest way to do is go into section and make those modifications to get those elevations just right. This hotspot allows us to move the cripples so that they're on pattern. And we also have that same hotspot here in plan. Here you can see the offset to the window, and so we will now, this window is a 6x5 8-foot header. 6, 5, 8-foot header. Rotated in position. Want to be flush to the framing. center. Go into 3D. Convert that back to a level top. And there it sits nicely in the wall, touching the plates because we told it what the plates are. And we're already well on our way to having a nice framing job on this particular wall. Now the shear wall is the most sophisticated object of the framing, and it's going to take a few minutes to begin to understand how this works. So this first stud allows you to shift the pattern. You'll notice these studs don't move in plan because they're on pattern. If we set the pattern, let's do this in 3. I think it's a little easier. Shift F3, so we're just looking at this wall. Here's the wall. This, you got to look at the node pattern on each stud because each one of these is going to do something a little different. So this is the stud origin starting at 0 and allows us to move our studs on to pattern. Now this stud here, this hotspot here, let's use this one. So when this is our stud pattern, when it's set to 0, it's on pattern. If we set it to 1, you'll notice we get a hotspot here at the bottom added. That allows us to shift studs as necessary to avoid plumbing or other posts or anything that makes sense. So we're able to take the stud off pattern. We can eliminate the stud by giving it a stud value of 0. Stud value 0 actually hides that stud. A 1 is a single stud. 2 is a double. 3 is a triple. 4 I didn't know what that did. 5 does, what the 5 does is a channel, and we give the special stud, so see another hotspot showed up, we give it a 4-inch trimmer or a 4-inch channel. You can see it here, and that can be a 4, a 6, or an 8, and that node is this special stud. And a 6 gives us just a flat stud. So, and then this one is able to move off pattern, or if we go back to this stud pattern 0, it puts it back on pattern, as you can see here. So you kind of have to play with this a little bit, and you have to figure out the clues to understand what's going on. So this is whether or not it's on pattern. If it has a node at the bottom, that means it's movable. This is the type of stud, and some types of studs give you this special stud here. There's also one other hotspot right here, and if you want to add a stud, you move this in this direction to direction 1. And so this stud was the one that was the pattern stud, but this is an added stud. So if you just need an additional stud in your layout, you do add stud. There's no pattern node because it's never on pattern. It's an additional stud. And say you needed to add a channel that was for a 4x. Now we can drop this in and put that anywhere we want in our wall. If you want to get rid of this added stud, then you just do -1 and it takes away that extra stud, and we can bring it back. So some pretty cool tricks we're using these hotspots to be able to manipulate the small details in this object. And now that you've seen how that works, you can, now all of this starts to make sense. So this is the pattern up and down. To put on pattern, we can go stud type 3 for a triple. We can do the same things. We want to take this off pattern, so we do 1, move it, stud type, we got to redo that as a 3. Pattern 1, stud type 3. So you're use tab to move around there. So lots of features. You can also put in your hold downs. Left post, hold down. And this position tells how that one works. Position 3. You can roll the stud around to any face, or the hold down to any face you want. So very flexible, very sophisticated object. And we can bring this in. Let's say that there's these nodes go on the outside. And we want 4x framing. Double 2x's on each side. So let's say our shear wall is from here, here. And let's do our window opening. So this window is a 2x4 8-foot header. 2, 4, 8 feet. Bring this in. There's the hot spot down there. Center to center, it's lining up. And one thing we want to do is select the framing opening. And that, I believe, is the left. We're going to put none. No left king. No left trimmer. You'll see it dropped the nodes because these studs are being used together. So let's take a look at that. It may be that we want to put these back with the 2x 2x and take away the trimmer or the post, right post. So some different options, and we'll go into 3D. So the shear wall is all the way over into these studs. Bring this cripple over to here. There we go. And now we took off the trimmers on this guy on the shear wall, but it's using the trimmers from the window opening. Here we have our channel. And let's see. Don't quite remember. And we want to go. There we go. I use the semicolon to go center to center from this point. Now I'm noticing there's a mistake in this program because the channel is showing outside here, but inside on the 3D. So that's something I'll have to fix, but that's the general gist of how you'd make this work. Here, this one, the stud type is a 1. We don't need a triple there. This is our added stud. Take that away. Put this one back on pattern. Now we can control all these studs. Took my termites or my channel away. Anyways, you get the idea. And once you get one of these set up and you practice with it, it gets to be much easier. But that's the general concept of utilizing all of the 3 primary objects, the post, the window opening, and the shear. And you can imagine, then the last thing you want to do is, after you get everything nice and cleaned up, after you get everything in, then you can get on your pattern. Then shift multiply 16 inches on center and start dragging these through. Take this, go from here. Here, so once you got a couple set up, you can run with it pretty fast. Get some studs in the corner. Copy this. Again. Now these are typical studs, so if you'll remember that checkbox. Typical stud, they'll take the label off. And one wall at a time, following the structural drawings, you get these studs laid out and then get the opportunity to organize things well, shift things for plumbing requirements and that sort of thing. So that is how you do the wall framing using the Masterworks objects.